morning, everybody. My name is Elliot Ruga. I'm the Policy and Communications Director at the New Jersey Highlands Coalition, and you are at the Creating a Sustainable, Resilient, and Prosperous Economy in the New Jersey Highlands with Maryjude Haddock-Weiler from the New Jersey Highlands Council and Alexandra Tranmer from Camoin Associates. A little bit about the hosts. Maryjude Haddock-Weiler is the planning manager for the Highlands Council. She has been practicing environmental and regional planning in New Jersey for more than 35 years. Prior to joining the Highlands Council staff, Maryjude was a private consultant for the Fellows Reed organization and ACT Engineers, Inc., where she worked with a broad range of clients, including the Department of Transportation, the Department of Environmental Protection, Mercer County Improvement Authority, and other county and municipal agencies. As a consultant, Maryjude was project manager of the Duck Island Master Plan and primary author of a waterfront public access manual prepared to guide development along the New Jersey coast. Maryjude received a BS in environmental planning and design from Rutgers Cook College. She earned a master's of city and regional planning from the Blaustein School. Maryjude is a licensed professional planner and certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. Alex Tranmer is senior project manager at Camoin Associates, where she leads complex strategic planning efforts in geographies ranging from bustling urban centers to pastoral villages. Prior to working at Camoin, she worked in the fields of architectural preservation and community organizing. Alex holds a Master's of Science in Planning from the University of Toronto. Maryjude and Alex, welcome.
Thank you, Elliot.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you all for attending this session on economic sustainability in the Highlands. As Elliot said, I'm Maryjude Haddock-Weiler, the planning manager at the Highlands Council, joined by Alex Tranmer of Camoin Associates. Alex is the project manager for the development of the economic sustainability plan for the Highlands region. So I'm going to begin with some background about the Highlands and the impetus for preparing the economic sustainability plan. Alex will then take over. She'll explain the plan and share some of the details and explain how it was developed. And of course, we'll save time for questions at the end. I'd also like to note that the plan is in draft form. It's currently posted on the Highlands Council website, and we are soliciting feedback. I put a link to our website in the chat, so feel free when you have a few moments, take a look at the plan and fill out the feedback form. Let's see, and just so you know, we're taking feedback until November 29th, and we're hoping that our Highlands Council will be considering the plan for release in December. So, as Elliot said, we are talking about creating a sustainable, resilient, and prosperous economy for the people and businesses in New Jersey. And there has never been a more important time to do this. The long-term future of the Highlands as a protected landscape is very much dependent upon our ability to balance resource protections with a healthy economy. Okay, so I expect that many of you are familiar with this map and the background of the Highlands, but I'd like to provide you with a little bit of an overview and a framework from which we can begin our discussion today. So the focus on the Highlands began at the federal level. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Forest Service conducted a study first in 1992 and then updated in 2002, looking at the Highlands in general. Those studies initially focused on New York and New Jersey, and they concentrated on the physiographic region with particular emphasis on forests and water supply. Ultimately, federal legislation was passed in November of 2004, which expanded the focus to include the four-state Highlands region, which is New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. And you can see that in the inset map at the bottom right corner. So the main map, of course, is in the New Jersey Highlands, And to the right in the bottom, you can see New Jersey and then how it extends into New York and Pennsylvania and Connecticut. So those early studies prompted New Jersey to organize a task force. And that task force ultimately recommended the passage of the New Jersey Highlands Water Protection and Planning Act and the creation of the Highlands Council. So the map you see here, of course, is of the New Jersey Highlands with our 88 municipalities and portions of 7 counties. Just waiting for the next slide. I know there's a delay. Okay. So when the 2002 Forest Service study was conducted, it outlined 5 overarching goals for the long-term stewardship of the Highlands. Number 1, manage future growth that is compatible with the region's ecological constraints. Studies were showing that an ever-increasing population was occurring and a concurrent loss of natural lands was happening. Number 2, maintain adequate surface and groundwater supply that meets the needs of local and downstream users. So a large population of each of the 4 Highlands states was utilizing Highlands water for their drinking supply. And in New Jersey specifically, the New Jersey Highlands supplies water to 70% of our population. Number 3, conserve contiguous forests using management practices that are consistent with private property rights and regional resources. Typically, large patches of forest are ecologically superior to smaller, broken up patches of forest. Number 4, provide appropriate recreational opportunities. And as many of us know, and we can attest to the fact that our natural lands and our waters are very popular as recreation spots. And 5th, promote economic prosperity that is compatible with goals 1 through 4. So even with a focus on forests and water supply and other natural resources, the studies knew that a healthy economy was essential for securing the future of the entirety of the region. So when the Highlands Act was passed, they too foresaw that there needed to be a strong economy in order for the protections to stay intact. The legislation identified that the Highlands was providing a desirable quality of life and place where people live and work, and that residential, commercial, and industrial development, redevelopment, and economic growth in certain appropriate areas in the New Jersey Highlands are in the best interests of all the citizens of the state. So we truly do recognize that the protection of our natural and cultural resources and a healthy economic growth are not mutually exclusive. One actually really very much supports the other. As a matter of fact, if any of you attended the ANJEC annual Congress just last month and listened to Commissioner LaTourette's lunch address, he said pretty much those same words. He said economic development and environmental protection are not mutually exclusive, and as he said, everyone gets to do well, which I think is very encouraging. So the Highlands Act charged the Highlands Council with both protecting our natural resource and maintaining a sustainable economy. When the Regional Master Plan was adopted in 2008, it contained goals, policies, and objectives related to economic growth. And when in 2018, the Highlands Council basically re-examined the master plan, one of the key recommendations that came out of it was to prepare an economic development plan for the Highlands, basically to help take those goals, policies, and objectives and bring them to fruition. So in an effort to be as comprehensive and far-reaching as possible, the council established a steering committee, and we actually began that in April of 2019, and that was intended to help guide our efforts towards development of an economic plan. The steering committee is made up of economic development experts with a representative from each of the 7 counties in the Highlands, as well as a member of the Highlands Council. The steering committee helped us draft the request for proposals that ultimately went out and helped us to actually vet the proposals that came in. And we really utilized their skills and their input to help guide this progress. So ultimately, after we went through all of our proposals and did our interviews, we chose Camoin Associates and their team, and the project began in the summer of 2020. Early on in the process, we recognized that we needed to do a lot of stakeholder outreach, and Alex is going to talk about that. But one of the first things we did was we established a technical advisory committee. And that's basically made up of a diverse group of different representatives throughout the region and actually outside the region, but who had an interest in what was going on with the Highlands. And we invited those people to work with us and help identify the goals and strategies to support a sustainable plan for economic prosperity across all of our communities. As a matter of fact, Julia Summers, who is Executive Director of the Highlands Coalition, serves currently on our Technical Advisory Committee, and we appreciate all the input she's provided us. As I mentioned, the draft plan is currently posted on our website, and the link is in the chat. So please take some time and take, look at it, review it. Alex, of course, is going to give you a nice overview of what's in there, and then you might have a better direction of what areas you'd like to focus on. So now I'd like to turn the session over to Alex from Camoin. She's going to explain the work that's been accomplished and share some of the details of the draft economic sustainability plan for the Highlands region. Okay, all right, Alex?
Thank you, Maryjude. My sounds okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Maryjude really set the stage right for the background and leading up to this. So that was really helpful for Camoin Associates, myself, and my team to be able to sort of marry the economic development, business development, industry opportunities with the work that Maryjude and her team do on a daily basis. So one of the things as we set out to do this, the term sustainability comes up a lot, and this economic sustainability plan, and that term gets used in many different ways, many different contexts. So we figured out we really needed to define that for this context. And so we sort of went back to this idea over the course of our meetings with the advisory council and steering committee and all of the engagement that we did, that we really wanted to define sustainability as business longevity. So certainly there are elements of environmental preservation and looking towards the future and clean and green technology in the term sustainability, but also is a bit more wide reaching in that, considering the longevity of business would also consider the ability of that business to innovate, the ability of that business to attract and retain workforce and remain competitive in the region and be able to uptake emerging trends in that industry. So we certainly, the importance of environmental preservation and understanding how certain industries impact the environment, that was one piece of the priority in terms of this plan. And then in addition to some of these other elements, attracting workforce and being able to uptake technology and those sorts of things. So that's just sort of a base in terms of understanding our priorities in this plan and how we're using the term sustainability. So in terms of the overall goals of this plan, at the end of the day, we want a roadmap for the Highlands Council, in addition to their partners, again, who are doing this work on the ground on a daily basis. So we wanted to identify the industry sectors that are most likely to grow and succeed within this vast region, It spans 7 portions of 7 counties, 88 municipalities, over 1,300 square miles, and 2.6 million people. So we're dealing with a very diverse, in many different ways, region. And so an industry is going to work in certain parts of this region and is not going to be a good fit in other parts. So we really wanted to be cognizant of where certain industries were best suited. And we did that with the help of Colliers, formerly Mazer, and using some GIS technology to really pinpoint and actually score certain industries and their fit for the region. And then also, COVID-19 was still happening in the midst of all of this. So that really shifted our sort of need and perspective on analysis for some of the industries. Some things had right, completely flipped. Some things maybe were accelerated, some trends accelerated. So that was really important to understand as well, and what some of those opportunities might be in the region because of the pandemic. And then ultimately at the end of the day, right, we're looking for this actionable plan that the Highlands Council can take, and also work with the steering committee, county leaders, municipalities, essentially a broad buy-in for certain strategies in this plan, because certain little pieces of it are going to be implemented from municipalities to counties to the council, right? Everyone's got a piece of implementation. And getting to, right, those partnerships and the who of implementation was really important to the process. And in order to really develop, partnerships that really already existed, was the engagement throughout the planning process. And so this is sort of just a broad overview of all of the engagement that happened over this, I guess we're at 16-month process or so. So Maryjude talked about the steering committee and the technical advisory committee. That was about 30 to 35 individuals that had a broad range of expertise in anything from agriculture, innovative sewer systems, different industries in the region, a really diverse, interesting group of folks that was brought along the entire process and provided really valuable feedback along the way. Anything else from one-on-one stakeholder interviews, Facebook page, digital engagement, direct outreach to businesses with phone calls and surveys. And one of the sort of fun, interesting things we did too was a collaboration with a couple of regional high schools. And we worked with them the students actually developed a survey for their peers, and then we got that feedback in terms of what they would want to see and enjoy, and the type of environment that they want to live in when they, graduate from high school and go out into the world. And so some of those responses were really interesting, and you'll find those in the executive summary and the plan. But just in terms of looking at different perspectives and understanding, right, sort of the next generation and what those priorities might be, that was really important to us as well. So again, all of this is sort of on the website and the link that Maryjude posted, but I want to emphasize too that at the end of the day, we've got the plan, right? The action plan and the strategies, but the different components of this report as well are extremely valuable in terms of the data that they possess for anyone from, right, nonprofits, workforce organizations, municipalities, counties. We've got a really comprehensive economic base profile, target industry analysis, the redevelopment, parcel identification, that's that GIS work that I talked about that Colliers did, and then a record of the engagement that we did across this 16-month process. So it's almost, the report is almost like a toolbox unto itself, that this data is intended to be used right as needed along the way. So certainly valuable in many different ways. And then, like Maryjude mentioned, that executive summary and the full report are available at that link until the 29th of November. Just a couple of themes that we wanted to pull out from the interviews that were quite comprehensive, but just a few things to point out in terms of things that might be a little bit different or really helped guide and inform our process. We heard about the challenges to business, right, in terms of being located in New Jersey and the Highlands in general, but certainly some positive comments about the locational advantages to this region in terms of sort of lifestyle shifts due to the pandemic. We heard a lot about the opportunities there in terms of, whether the Highlands and the ability to work remotely was going to be an opportunity to sort of attract a cohort, that 25 to 35 year old age group that we've seen leaving the area for about a decade now, and thinking about this as an opportunity to really, reverse that trend. One of the things that we talked a lot about too was evaluating and communicating the economic impact of maybe non-traditional economic development assets. So whether that's green space, trails, lakes, things that provides a lot of value and really draw people in, whether it's for recreation, visitation, it's where people want to live, right? That adds value to an area, and really being able to communicate that in terms of economic impact provides such an ability to tell the story about the value of an asset. And so really coordinating on some of the things that already exist, but just making sure that those are communicated widely. Housing crunch, right? We have all heard about that in our different capacities, but the connection to the housing crunch, limiting the ability of people to find space to live in the region, right? That's not only impacting the population in general, but it's impacting the ability of businesses to attract and retain workforce. So it's having implications across the board, across business development opportunities. And so housing really becomes an economic development issue, which you'll see is really incorporated into the plan as well. And then just lastly, building on the idea of housing being connected to employment and businesses being able to attract and retain workers, right? It's not just about building good housing over here, maybe a good job over here, and recreation opportunities over here. Really thinking about that concentration and sort of smart growth principles, connecting those elements: housing, job opportunities, transportation, recreation, right? It matters where that development happens. And again, something that really helped inform this process. One of the things that we also went back to again and again from the beginning of the process was understanding how success was going to be defined. So 10 years from now, if we look back and say this plan was fully implemented, how are we going to know that it's successful among many other things to track? But among the steering committee and the technical advisory group, you can see here these 3 things highlighted in red. These were the things that rose to the top. So a diversified economy, an increase in the total number of jobs, and then a maintained and enhanced water quality. So those 3 things, I think, really just speak to some of the things that Maryjude introduced in the beginning, right? We're talking about clearly maintaining and enhancing water quality, the mission of the Highlands Council, but also that diversified economy, the ability of broad employment opportunities are so connected. And again, something that really informed how we went about this process. So that takes us to our strategies and our ultimately sort of these big buckets, we tend to call them, right? These goal statements that are the driving force for the plan. So these were sort of our boiled down. The goal statements became the distillation of the interviews we did, the data that we did, the work with the steering committee, technical advisory committee, the staff of the Highlands Council, right? All of this came together to these 5 priority statements. And I'm just going to read these out, and then I'll talk a little bit about the rationale behind all of them and how, again, all the things that we heard sort of built on each other to help us arrive here. So, reinforcing the Highlands region as a center of natural resource protection, innovation, and technology. Goal 2, communicating the value of the quality of life of the Highlands region and evaluating how current assets either meet, miss, exceed market demand. Goal 3, expand awareness and understanding of the New Jersey Highlands Council's purpose and impact on the business community. Goal 4, strengthen the role of the New Jersey Highlands Council as a leader in regional planning assistance. And lastly, Goal 5, support the Highlands region's existing target industries and small businesses in their effort to thrive, adapt in response to the new economy. So this sort of goal 1 goes back to the idea of the definition of sustainability that I talked about at the beginning, right? We're talking about not just environmental, the environmental connection to sustainability, but also that business longevity, whether that's innovation, technology, anything that helps a business thrive. And so the sort of clean, green technology movement, right? That has spread across industry sectors. You know, it was really not limited to certain industries at this point. And so the ability of this region, the Highlands Council and their partners to, you know, grow as a leader in this area, be a testing ground for new innovative technologies that can really lead the way in this emerging sector, provides such opportunity, as this is something that really becomes ubiquitous, maybe more slowly than some people, you know, would like, but certainly something that is emerging and that the council and this area is primed to be a leader in. Goal 2, so that quality of life element, right, that we talked about, the recreational trails, the green space, the historic legacy of the region, right? All of those things that add value to the region in maybe a little bit of an intangible way, and figuring out how to really address that economic impact. This goal area talks about housing, really understanding, again, that connection to economic development potential, and ensuring that there's alignment between, right, if there's industry growth, are there opportunities for those workers to live, recreate, play in that same area where those employment opportunities might be. Goal 3. So the Highlands Council has a great toolbox of resources to help support municipalities across portions of these 7 counties, right? Whether that's technical assistance grants, working with the municipal liaisons. There is such a vast, just a vast wealth of knowledge, right, at the council, and perhaps is not as well known as that could be. And so part of this process sort of uncovered that these resources really do provide valuable, they are valuable when they are tapped into, but making sure that municipalities that maybe aren't typically as well connected to the council or might not, you know about these resources, ensuring that that is communicated widely and really utilized, is really going to help advance the goals, not just of the council, but of local municipalities on the ground as well, who have their own economic development priorities. Again, thinking about the council as a leader in regional planning assistance, certainly a role that it's already playing, and this just speaks to sort of the need to enhance that role that it's really already playing in the region. And then lastly, goal 5 really focuses on the target industries as well as small businesses throughout the region. So when we talk about target industries and economic development, that isn't to say that we are cutting out opportunities for other industries. What that really means is, right, we've all got limited resources, limited capacity to grow certain industries, right? So if we identify those industries that have the best opportunities to grow, those are industries that are going to help rise the overall economic potential of the region, and is going to allow other industries to grow. So whether that's in supporting small downtowns, the retail, commercial, sort of those day-to-day businesses, certainly important, again, to quality of life and creating spaces and places that we all want to be in. But in terms of, right, those target industries like advanced manufacturing, life sciences, agriculture and agricultural technology, right? There's competition. There's a competition for those industries, and ensuring that this region in New Jersey really works to retain the expertise and talent that it has in those industries so that they continue to grow and concentrate in this area is really going to help support overall economic opportunity. So the plan has quite a few ideas about where those markets are that are growing, and again, those things that are well suited to the area. So that is a very quick overview of the plan. I would certainly encourage you to head to the website that we've got here again. It's pretty easy. It's got a Google form link to it for you to provide input, and we are certainly happy to receive that feedback. Right, so we've gone through this whole planning process, and I'd like to say that this is sort of where the quote unquote real work begins, right? We're taking this transition from the planning process to the implementation process. So like Maryjude mentioned, we hope to take the plan to the council at the December or January meeting for formal action. And so that'll be sort of the initiation or catalyst to that implementation phase. One of the first things that is going to involve is an outreach campaign and communications about what is in the plan. And so we've got, a few ideas about what that is going to look like. But if you're interested at all in, receiving some more information, or maybe your municipality is interested in hearing a little bit more about how the plan might apply to, your local economic development committee, that's exactly what Maryjude and her team are hoping to do over the next several months. So the next slide will have our contact information. So don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to connect and, get this plan out into local communities. And then lastly, Maryjude and her staff, they've got a table today at the conference. So feel free to drop in and say hi, ask about the plan and touch base. We'd love to hear from you. And I will just leave our contact and website information up here. And I think we can turn to questions, unless Maryjude, you want to wrap up with anything else?
No, Alex, I think you did a great job of doing the overview of the plan, and I'm really interested in hearing questions and maybe some feedback.
Thank you, Alex and Maryjude. If you have questions, please type them in the chat and I will convey them to Alex and Maryjude. I have a lead-off question as people gather their thoughts. I didn't hear any mention of municipal conformance, which is a major role that the Highlands Council plays in encouraging municipal conformance in the planning area. Is there any economic sustainability module that is promoted or studied or looked at or enhanced through the conformance process, Maryjude?
So Elliot, as I'm sure you're pretty familiar with our regional master plan, one of the, as it says, requirements of municipalities that work with us is that they do an economic plan for their community. So we have, for all the years that we've been issuing grants towards plan conformance, we have economic development plans, economic sustainability plans. A number of our municipalities, as well as counties, have taken advantage of this. And then, so what this plan does is it actually helps to further those plans, and it also helps to guide where those plans should focus. So we're actually really excited. We've obviously not stopped municipalities from doing economic planning before we got this plan, together. But we feel like this now is the impetus to go even further and get more of our municipalities and counties on the same track as far as trying to implement. And if you go to the plan, Alex has in there a matrix of actions. And some of those are meant to be done at the local level, whether it's municipal or county, along with other partnerships. So yeah, really what this plan does is it opens it up even further than what our goals, policies, and objectives that were in the RMP had already, sort of put out there on the table.
Great. Well, there's a question from my colleague, Julia Summers, and that is will there be any coordination between this plan and the state plan or the state's economic development authority that towns and businesses can benefit from?
So I'll let Alex pick up from this, but as I mentioned about this matrix of activities, one of the actions that we're going to pursue basically is a good working relationship with the Economic Development Authority as well as Division of Tourism to help facilitate some of the actions moving forward. In addition, as you know, the State Planning Commission last year actually endorsed the Highlands Regional Master Plan, and we have a continuing good relationship with the Office of Planning Advocacy and through the State Planning Commission. So we absolutely are coordinating with those individuals, and we will continue to do that moving forward. Again, this plan is laying out the steps and the framework so that we can continue to have those partnerships and see where we can support each other, the state plan with us and us with the state planning objectives. I don't know, Alex, you might have some more thoughts about the coordination.
No, I mean, I think that summarizes it well. The only thing I was going to add in terms of the state's priorities, I think about it from the sort of industry perspective, right? And as we look at target industries and the alignment with the state, that was one of the things that we looked at in terms of alignment with technologies and priorities that the state has and how that might align with the Highlands region, and in terms of sharing resources and being able to pursue some of the same goals where the Highlands could help advance the states, right? That sort of collaboration, I think, is going to be important in the future.
We have a question from Alan Hunt from Musconetcong Watershed Association. His question is, no single river name is mentioned in the report. This plan seems boilerplate about regional assets. It does not acknowledge that we have several national level assets, the Musconetcong and Delaware National and Wild Scenic Rivers, the Musconetcong Watershed National Water Trail, the Morristown National Historic Park. All are national level assets supported by the National Park Service. Why these omissions, and how can these resources be leveraged to support regional economic sustainability?
So I'll start, and then I'll pass to Alex if she'd like to add to it. So we recognize that there are vast and almost unlimited assets that we have in the Highlands region. And because we didn't do a listing does not mean that we're not aware of them. We are, again, laying a guidance out there so that in each case where there's an opportunity to advance, taking advantage of, if you will, of each of these resources, we think that that's exactly what our overall goals are doing. One of the things that has been discussed, and you can see in the plan, and you'll see also as it gets implemented, is we're looking at all of the trails that we have throughout the Highlands, and there's many trails. The Highlands Council recently has been working with the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference to help map and sign that whole Highlands Trail. And there's obviously lots and lots of other trails, and I can't mention them all. But the idea is that we have this great resource, and we would like to take advantage of it by encouraging people to go and use it. And then when they're done, to visit the town that's nearby or another resource that's nearby where they can support local businesses and where basically we can encourage them to spend their money in the Highlands because they're enjoying these fabulous resources that we enjoy and that we support. Alex, I'm sure that you probably have a better technical way of explaining it.
No, I mean, that makes sense, right? We certainly, again, acknowledge and are aware of these resources in the region. I think the effort of this plan was to understand, right, yes, we've got these national resources. How do they impact economic development, business development, and right, what is that connection between the two? How do we make that more apparent? How do we communicate that? What is the value, right, in terms of economic development for those assets? So it's a large region, right, to capture all of the resources, but certainly acknowledge that, right, those are the things that really contribute to the high quality of life and the uniqueness of the region.
The obvious industries and businesses that are considered assets to economic sustainability in the Highlands, we are recreation and tourism associated with recreation and agriculture. Are there industries that you've discovered that are less obvious, that the Highlands are very well suited to have as assets to the economy?
So I'll just jump in here. I think you mentioned agriculture, and agritourism was one that did continue to come up as sort of one that maybe has not been tapped into as much as it could. So that's sort of growing and evolving in terms of what that is and what it can be. I also think in terms of, right, not just the tourism side of agriculture, but the innovation and technology that goes into agriculture today is, you know, absolutely stunning, and something, again, that from our technical advisory committee, something that is certainly happening in this region. And there's a lot of R&D around, you know, different food sources and sustainability around food sources, and whether it's meat and meat substitutes or dairy substitutes and things like that. Right, this area definitely has certain niches, but I think some of that R&D in agriculture sort of emerged as a definite opportunity as we talk about, right, the clean, green sort of things that are spreading across different industries that this region could be a leader in.
Don't forget beer.
Beer, of course. Beer, wine, yeah, the food and beverage. You know, from year to year, sort of the markets that grow, whether it's, right, the kombucha, hard kombuchas, seltzers. There's probably a new one that's already come out in this presentation. Right, so yeah, all of those things in the private sector tend to happen at such a fast rate, and sort of keeping up with the technology that brings those things to market is a big feat.
Okay. Another question from Julia Summers. There is a push going on right now to create a Delaware Water Gap National Park rather than a national recreation area, which it currently is designated. While it is not in the Highlands, can the region benefit from such a new designation?
Actually, I'm not as familiar with the new designation, but I actually am on the roundtable to discuss the recreation area, and because they recently came out with a user plan. So there are actually pieces of the Delaware recreation area that are within the Highlands, along the Delaware. Of course, there's parts of Warren County and Sussex County. So we do have a working relationship with them, and we will continue to take advantage of how we can support each other. Because what we notice is, of course, we have our region, but our region doesn't have hard walls around it. So if people are visiting the Delaware recreation area, there's no reason that we can't program activities that bring them into the Highlands. And then similarly, if there are people in the Highlands and they want more activities, there's another opportunity very nearby. And it's, I think, that magnet of activities that will bring more visitors. So the answer is, I don't know so much about the redesignation as a park, but as far as the work that they're doing, we are actually involved in that.
Okay. How will the council promote this plan to Highlands communities? Will you be visiting these communities so the public, I guess, on the local level, might also learn more?
Absolutely. I'm glad Julia asked that question. I think it was Julia, right?
Yep.
We are interested in sharing this. We, as I said, we're hoping it'll be before our council at the December meeting. So pay attention to your meeting announcements, because that will be another opportunity to hear a similar presentation. But yes, we will absolutely be opening it up and inviting municipal and county entities to invite us to give presentations.
Great. I see no other questions. Maryjude and Alex, do you have any final thoughts before we close out?
I'll just say that sort of the theme of the conference, right, and the work that we've been doing over the course of a year or so just, seemed to align so well. And that's sort of one of the themes that came out of this whole process, right, this was something that people were thinking about, and this process sort of just came about at sort of the right time. And so I think it is a meaningful and timely time to sort of get started, sort of formalizing this work. I know that this is something that people do right day to day and has already been happening, but to have it sort of set out as a priority is just as important. So I'm excited to see where things go. Maryjude, anything else?
Yes. So first of all, I want to thank the organizers of the conference for inviting us to speak today. As Alex said, this is the perfect time. We have our draft plan out there. We've been working very hard on it for, over about a year and a half. And, we've done a lot of outreach. We've gotten a lot of stakeholder engagement, but we know that there's always going to be other ideas, and there will be people who really love some of the stuff that's in this plan, and people who have ways they think they'd like to see it refined. I think that the critical message here is we very much want to continue to have a protected Highlands region. We very much want the Highlands to continue to be recognized as an important and sustainable region. And we know from, if you look at even other places in New Jersey where maybe some regional planning has been tried, if you can't keep the whole supported in a sustainable, I know I keep using that word, but it's really, really important, a sustainable way, so that everybody is, as the commissioner is offering, but you've got beautiful forests. At some point, somebody's going to come in and say, well, we can't afford this anymore. We need to have the whole picture. We need to have the entire region understood as a thriving place that's healthy in many ways, environmentally, economically, and socially. So that is really the reason we're doing this plan, is we want to make sure that we secure our future, and that we don't miss paying attention to something that we would see later on, oh gee, that was really critical. So I want to thank you for inviting us to share this. I think that this audience is really important, because I know many of the people in this conference are really focused on protecting our natural resources. And we want you to understand that we are just as committed to that, but we recognize that there are other things you need to do in order to continue to have that into the future. So thank you.
So water resource protection is not a diminished priority of the Highlands Council.
No, actually, I
make
think
sure that's
a couple
emphasized.
things Alex said. One, that was identified by our key stakeholders as one of the top 3 things that they said would mean this was a successful plan. And 2, we said the very first goal is that we want to be innovative in the way that we utilize our resources. And obviously, water is a critical resource in the Highlands.
Great. Well, Maryjude and Alex, thank you very much for your time and your expertise. This was very interesting. I want to remind everybody that all of the sessions today are being recorded. They will be available on New Jersey Highlands Coalition's YouTube channel, and all of the visual presentations will be available as well. And we have some time before the next series of workshops, so please stop by the expo and visit our sponsors and other people who are interested in the work we do. And I understand your executive director, Maryjude, might be at the expo
Yes.
this morning as well, if you want to have a conversation with Lisa Clevin. So thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you later this morning.
Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.